I really am, and I thank you, Dr. Bolton. This was so thorough, and I think it removes all of the questions that anybody possibly could have had, and it heard every single person who possibly could have had an opinion on the subject. And I just thank you for taking the time to go through it, and I do hope that it's the decision from our Bring it up for as long as you're great. You don't have to deal. Right, 6 more years at least.
And I appreciate that I was the voice of it tonight, but really Dr. Price and Mr. Bell, I don't know how many times I asked them questions about this. And so for them to be in the room, I do need to thank them because they obviously were the experts from a standpoint of living it for multiple years. And so anytime I had a question, I was like, oh, come on up, we need to meet. And so they were constantly sitting down and talking graduation with me, sometimes answering the same question multiple times. So I do appreciate that from them as well. Thank you.
All right, great. Oh, and before we go on, I just wanted to know if anyone who's going to speak, if you can stand up and go to the podium, you know, whether you're presenting or having a comment or question. It just makes it easier for the recording in this room, okay? All right. Now we're moving, the next item on the agenda is the Special Olympics Memorandum of Understanding, also known as an MOU. Dr. Price.
Thank you, Mrs. Cullen. So tonight we will be looking for support for a memorandum of understanding between the Special Olympics of Pennsylvania and the Pennridge School District. The length of the agreement would be from the day we sign this until the end of the school year. And it's a great opportunity for our students, grades 9 through 12. And this would be for students that meet the Special Olympics criteria, students with special needs, and they would be partnered one-to-one with a student without special needs to participate in track and field this spring. This memorandum of understanding includes funding for the coaches, it includes equipment, it includes training, resources, uniforms for the students, shirts for the coaches. It's funded through a grant that they have obtained. So I've asked Mr. Babb to come here and to just give us kind of a little overview of what this would look like in the spring for our students.
Dr. Price hit it right on the nose. It's a great opportunity for our students with intellectual disabilities. It provides them an opportunity, in our district, an opportunity for to help give them an opportunity to participate that is blends Title IX, so it provides an opportunity that these kids didn't have before. And it also gives us an opportunity for the kids that are in general ed classes to participate alongside with them. And what they found in other districts that have done this, Sourton does it, Central Bucks East has a team, Palisades has a team, and some others in the area, North Penn, Cheltenham down the road. It's kind of been growing, but what these schools have found is it decreases kids, basically their fear factor dealing with kids with disabilities, their bullying, their teasing. It kind of helps them rub elbows with these kids, and it also provides an opportunity for the kids to enhance their athletic ability that have special needs. Right now, if we have a kid that wants to participate on a team, we let them try out, but there's not necessarily a fit as far as our athletic program, and this really provides a great fit. The kids can participate in 4 running events. They can participate in 4 field events. They have things that are modified. You know, they're doing events up to an 800, and they're doing relays, and then they're also doing field events. They're doing a shot put. It's a modified shot put. It's a modified javelin. It's a plastic, safe javelin, and they're doing a long jump. So it basically is the same season as the spring sports season goes. So that'd be this year. I think it's March 4th, and it's 10 weeks. The kids are going to participate 2 times a week. We have 2 teachers that are interested that teach special ed that have won track in the past that they want to help out with, and a lot of other coaches. We actually have a track coach that teaches at the Central Bucks YMCA. He teaches track and field down there to special needs kids. So there's a lot of interest. We have a Best Buddies Club here in the school, and they're going to try to get some of those kids that are in that Best Buddies Club to come out and participate in this team. It's pretty much a serious sport. They've got to do a physical, just like a PIAA athlete would in our school. It's not endorsed. It's not a PIAA sport, but it is endorsed by the PIAA. So actually, these kids can compete. For instance, our kids are going to compete in 2 meets this year, and then they're going to go to a regional meet. If they continue to qualify past the regional meet, the Special Olympics will fund their way to Shippensburg, to where the PIAA has their meet, and these kids can participate in a state championship along with that. And the Special Olympics will pay for it. So it's a great opportunity for them. We're kind of in a mode right now where we're going to see how it works out this year, kind of starting small, and hopefully it'll gain speed. The maximum you can have is 30 kids. They'll pay for 30 kids. For every special ed student that you have, you need to have a general education student equally. So if you have 15 and 15, that's the max you can have for the 30 students, and they'll provide uniforms, equipment, and all of that for them. So it's a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. Mr. Bone has really been pushing the last year or so to get it going, and fortunately we have a lot of staff that are eager to do it, and over the last couple of years we've had some special ed kids that have run track. Years ago we had a girl that swam, and I think they would really have enjoyed this even more, I think. So, any other questions about?
David, I'll just add that along with this program comes some resources, and the resources from the Special Olympics are, one's called Inclusive Youth Leadership, and that's working with either one of your current student clubs or even the possibility of forming a new club where some of these students with special needs, bless you, could be involved in a club and kind of have a leadership role. And then another one is whole school engagement, which was talking about possibly planning some engagement activities for students to focus on inclusion, acceptance, improving school climate, and all that thing, all of those things that schools definitely need and always need to work on. So that's a whole nother off the field, off the track piece of this. And then the last thing is, we mentioned all the great things that are covered by Special Olympics through this as far as the monetary piece. There are some, will be some minimal costs to the district with this. And Mr. Babb and Mr. Bona have budgeted for this. Of course, you're going to need PIAA officials like you would for any student activity like this. Some game workers, a nurse might have to be available, and some of the students may require a PCA if that's written into their IEP. So there's a possibility you don't know who the students are until they sign up, so you can incur a cost such as that. So there are some minimal costs that we prepare for, but the big stuff is covered by Special Olympics. So it's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Babb, for bringing this to us, and Mr. Bona.
And can I clarify something you said? The costs that are estimated are already budgeted for this year. This was something that you would hope to bring, so the budget for this year already includes those numbers.
Yes, there's not a separate, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a separate breakout line item for this, but when you were planning for officials and game workers and those sorts of things, you made sure there was enough in there to cover these events.
Yeah, we're going to run one meet here. That's our goal, is to do one meet here and go from there.
When you said there will be 30 students, how do you decide if more than that would like to do it? How do you narrow that down to 30?
I don't know. I think we're going to have tryouts. I would anticipate it'd be more like a first come, first serve.
Okay.
Whoever gets their paperwork in, which is it's detailed, and there's a commitment involved with that. So.
And I would suggest that if we're going to definitely do this and we sign and move forward, which I hope we will, that we'll contact some of these other schools that have been doing this for a period of time, and we'll hopefully learn from maybe some of the mistakes that they made early on.
Yeah, the teams I've seen are
ask
small.
these questions.
6, 7, 8 special needs kids, and then paired up with their buddies.
How does this compare to what Sourton does?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same thing.
So really the max of participation is 15 special ed students as athletes.
And they compete right alongside. So they'll take, let's say there's 30 kids, they'll take them and we'll do a time trial practice. And it could be a regular ed kid, it could be a special ed kid, but we'll put them in heats. And when we go to run against Sowerton, there'll be heats according to how they're running, and they'll race against, common times and common opponents. Right alongside with, regular and special ed.
Thank you, I'm really glad you brought this forward and Mrs. DeBona brought this forward because I think this will be great for our kids and I wish we had started this years ago.
Yeah, we had a boy a couple years ago, he would have been a gold medalist, I'm sure. He loved it, he ran track and really loved it.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I think it's a great idea too, so thank you very much. And if there aren't any objections, we would move it forward to the meeting. Going back to the graduation thing, do we need to take any action on that at the board meeting? No, it's just, okay. I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure before we went ahead.
Thank you.
But with this, if no, we'll move it ahead to the board meeting for approval. Thank you. Our last item on our agenda is the preliminary 2019-20 district calendar. And it is very preliminary, but we're going to have a discussion. I'll let Dr. Price cover the particulars.
So I'll start by saying at this point, since this is the very first attempt at a draft, and we're talking about this probably earlier than ever before, we're not distributing and posting, making public copies of the calendar because it is subject to change, and this is a draft before we even sat down with our other upper Glen schools to look at it. So this is a first attempt at coming up with a calendar that works. So I guess I'll start with kind of what this timeline looks like as far as all the steps this goes through. I don't know if we ever talked about this publicly before. So starts with really a draft of making sure your dates for the calendar year themselves are correct and kind of taking last year's, saving it into a new document and redoing the actual calendar itself. And then working with the cabinet, the district office cabinet members team, the administration team, to kind of just look at that initially and try to remember feedback from the prior years and try to incorporate all the things that you've heard. And it's so much of a challenge to try to make everyone happy, as you know, with the district calendar, because you can't have everything. When you take something out or you want to put something in, it's kind of a give and take. So we try to come up with a draft that's at least a starting point in October. And then last week, and Mrs. Walters was on this committee with me, our Act 48 committee met last week, and that's the first committee that starts giving feedback to this. And then tonight, the Activities Committee will be able to give feedback. Then on Wednesday this week, I go to our Upper Bucks Technical School and meet with Palisades and Quakertown and the technical school folks. And then we start looking at how the three schools compare. So I need a draft, at least a starting point to go into that meeting. And then we try to get as much to be as common as we can with the calendars. And we have to keep in mind teacher contracts are a little different in the districts. The technical school has their own number of working days, and so we can't all just do our own thing for every day in the calendar. I'll go back to cabinet after that meeting. Our next cabinet meeting after that would be around mid-November. I'll take it to our principal meetings. Principals will be able to give feedback. And then we'll come back to the Activities Committee in January. January 7th is the next meeting. And then hopeful board approval will be at the January board meeting. So in time for that Activities Committee meeting, we would post that version going into that committee so you would see it at that time. So tonight it's kind of just some opening discussions. Board members, you have a preliminary draft for what I call an option A and option B. They're numbered at the top of your paper there. So option A is patterned after the current school year calendar that we're living right now. Not a lot of change except adding in a couple things here. I'll highlight what we're talking about. Well, one was adding a Jewish holiday. That is, Rosh Hashanah was added on September 30th. Another change compared to the current year would be that the Easter Monday would now be a snow makeup day instead of the Thursday before Easter. Meaning we make up on a holiday as opposed to an insert day. I'll talk about that more in a second. And then finally, snow makeup day is added in December. When looking to decide, do you give that Monday before Christmas break, December 23rd? When I look at that, I kind of work backwards and I go into June and I say, okay, we'll give it that day off, take us into the next school week or not. And we were ready into the next school week anyway, so that's why I put that in there, because I don't think attendance would be so high anyways that Monday. But then I made it a snow makeup day, thinking that, who knows, with the rains we've been having, we could have hurricane flooding, or who knows. So threw it in there, but then made it an immediate emergency weather day if we need it. So that's a little bit different based on just the way the holiday fell this year. So that's the big difference is kind of the other in-service days, the other professional learning days fell into line pretty much where they did this year. So again, this was kind of trying to duplicate it. Labor Day in this version falls on the 2nd of September. So based on the rule of thumb we've been following lately, that if Labor Day falls on September 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, we start after Labor Day. So in this example, we would be starting after Labor Day again. And we said at our, just kind of an update on that, we said at our last activities meeting that we would not change this for this coming year, kind of this pattern, because we have our other schools that we're working with that are already planning this. So kind of just mapping this out for the next 10 years of Labor Days. And Amanda DeWitt, my administrative assistant, and I, sometimes we have to project into a decade from now and things we can't possibly predict, like student numbers, but we can predict Labor Days. So we can tell you when Labor Day is going to be in 2028. And so if we say this one's going to be after Labor Day, then after that there's 4 straight years that we'd be starting before Labor Day. And then finally in 2024 we'd be back to starting after for 2 years, and then 3 more years of before. So after this one, there'd only be 2 out of the next 9 years that we'd be starting after Labor Day if we don't change anything. If we decide to change it, what we said in April was we would give ample notice to families and to the other schools, and we would say, okay, we're always going to start before Labor Day if we decide to go that way, and that's going to start with the year 2024. So there'll be plenty of notice. So the point of that whole thing is, I guess, in this next calendar, 2019, 2020, after that, we start before Labor Day for several years, even if we do nothing. It'll be 4 consecutive years after that. Version B, and then we can...
Can I clarify something about the Jewish holidays?
Sure.
And so on the draft of option A and option B, you are recommending an increase to both Jewish holidays. Can you talk a little bit about currently what we do and what the rest of the community is in terms of Jewish holidays?
So currently, the 3 Upper Buck schools are the only ones that do not give a day off, at least 1 day off for each of those 2 Jewish holidays. And so in the past, we have only given off for Yom Kippur. And so this would be adding 1 day for Rosh Hashanah. And if you look at the Upper Bucks, or if you look at Bucks County in general, it's split. It's about 50-50. Some days, some schools give off 2 days for the holidays, some give off 3 days for the holidays. This would put us closer in line to that. And again, this is before having discussion with Palisades and Quakertown, and this is a proposal that Pennridge would be making, and that is in both version A and version B, is a day off for each of those. So the day that falls, schools that give only 1 day for each, that's when schools would be giving off across the county.
If we do that and the other 2 schools decide not to, do we leave the option open for our tech students to still attend the tech school on that day if they want to?
We can leave that option open. I don't know that there's going to be good attendance on a day such as that. I don't know that we want to do that for Jewish holiday, because you could have technical school students that are practicing religions and we're not sure of the religions in practice. So I would say if we're going to do that for religious reasons, that we would say it's an all-inclusive.
How does that work then? Do our students just lose 1 day of tech school? Is that what would happen?
If the other schools do not, if the tech school is staying open for the other 2 schools and losing a full day, yes, and some of the programs are hour sensitive, so we can't be different on a full day like this too often throughout the calendar.
Right.
So I can safely answer that question more when I say what's the end result and how many total days would be different. And cosmetology comes to mind, I know that's very,
Right, and that's why I was thinking if it was optional, then if students who are worried about their hours could go if they wanted to.
and we could certainly have that discussion, and that's one of the things that we would do if we dismiss early. And version B, that would be an option for them, we would say certainly, really should be attending, especially if they're hour sensitive in those situations. There are days that our students, go because they need the hours. It's not always a one-to-one every single time the home school's off, the technical students are off, and that's not just at Pennridge. We try to do it as often as you possibly can, but there's times in some districts when those students start earlier than the homeschool students do, because they have to get there, and they might finish a little bit earlier. So as long as we're getting the program requirements in, the bulk of these days can hopefully be the same. So version B, just flip the calendar over. Version B has all those same pieces as version A that I just mentioned, but then also includes one additional piece, and that is an early dismissal day, one per marking period for professional learning purposes. So, and by the way, there's things that I kind of made huge or bold, and when we would publicize this calendar, we wouldn't have some of these things in there, but to make it easier to understand, that's why kind of you see the bright blue as well. So the bright blue, 1 each marking period, that is an early dismissal day. That would be K to 12, and that would be set up with the goal of obtaining about 3 hours of professional learning at each level. So we'd have to stagger the dismissals, and I have the principals working on what could that possibly look like if we wanted to still serve lunch, all your lunches on those days, because we don't want to lose the lunch subsidy. And so that's the biggest challenge here, is what would that schedule look like and still have enough time to be able to do something meaningful at your building level. So we have some approximate times of what that could look like as far as we work for transportation as well as for buildings. So that's a piece that would have to be worked out. Another piece that would have to be worked out is the effect on kindergarten, if we're going to dismiss those 4 days. But the good thing is, if you're planning in advance, it's not like a last spare of the moment thing for weather. You can plan for this, and you can be precise with your dismissal times, assuming you don't have weather in those days. So that's the purpose of those 4 days. Of course, the trade-off is you lose some instructional time, and that's why you have to balance the number of days you're picking to do this. So in this draft, we just picked 1 day for marking period. Just to give you an idea, we have to meet the hour requirement that we are given by PDE, and also the day requirement. So the day requirement is 180, and then the hour requirement for our high school and our middle school is 990 hours. And then for our elementary, it's 900 hours. We'll take half of that for a half-day kindergarten, it'll be 450 hours. We are above that, and still well above that for all levels, even with taking off these early dismissal times. High school would be losing 13 hours, of course, across the 4 days. Middle school will be losing just a little bit under that, 12.67. Elementary losing 12 hours. If you look at the required hours compared to what the state requirements, high school and middle school need 990. High school would still have, even after this is deducted, they'd still have 1037, so they're still above it. Middle school would have 1175, or way above it. Elementary 1068, so that's with those hours deducted. So we're coming in. We're coming in prepared for this, and even with not making up the first snow day, that's 181. That's actually a day above and beyond as well. So we're still in good shape hour-wise. It's just philosophically, do we want to put in early dismissals or not? Do we value the ongoing professional development throughout the year and making it meaningful? We've talked about this in the Act 48 committee, and we had more than one board member that's been on that committee. Megan, you were on at some point as well. And so we've heard that every year, the need for that ongoing professional learning. And also this remedies a parent-teacher conflict in November, where teachers have expressed concern about teaching a full day, having evening conferences at night, and then teaching the next day. In November, early dismissal would be the Friday after those evening conferences, so that kind of helps with that situation as well.
So during that, oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone else, when we're talking about that ongoing professional development, and you referenced the conversations that we've had before, I just want to explain that what Dr. Price is talking about is that you have these professional development goals for the teachers, And to be able to do it throughout the year is more helpful because then they can implement it as you go along, right? And it lines up, it helps them to bring it into their teaching more rather than just having it, you know, at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year. So that was something that we were trying to do, was to make it so it was more consistent throughout the year time.
Absolutely. Yes.
Go ahead, Megan.
And we're limited on hours because some of our professional learning days are dedicated to other things that are just kind of things you have to do. Teacher online trainings, for instance, things like that are just requirements by the state. You have to do these to maintain your certificate. You know, we from time to time give hours for something such as that. So to actually dig deep and for teachers to be researching and learning the skills in a pathway that they're choosing, since we're now looking at professional learning pathways and having some choice in their professional learning. To do that early in the year, and then, you know, many times they don't have a day until late spring when we have this opportunity again. So we need something to bridge that gap in there instead of just an occasional day here and there. So that was the thought process going into this.
Also, weren't there some staff development days that then get bumped because it's a snow makeup day? And then if you have a special in-service professional development planned around new curriculum, it doesn't make sense then. You're supposed to touch base mid-year, and then it doesn't make sense, now it's got pushed back to June. Now it's scheduled, you know, you go and switch it out but it doesn't make sense, then it's, you know, disconnected to do it then in June.
Absolutely, it's another benefit to have it in there. That's one of the reasons also in this version you'll see that the Monday after Easter was a makeup day on a holiday as opposed to the in-service day in April. So in February, in both versions, an in-service day is a makeup day. In April, it's a holiday, thinking we don't have both professional learning days bumped to the end of the year. I don't know if our other colleagues in the county are going to go for this or not, but that was a reason for that, was so you know you're not going to bump more than one full day to the end of the year, and they already have a day at the end of the year, so that adds a second one to that. So, but yeah, Lisa, you're absolutely right. If we keep putting snow makeup days as the in-service days, all of a sudden all those days get tacked on to the end and we lose the timeliness of it, and the students that year don't benefit from the professional development.
When you said they would have the early dismissal, because I know one of the big, and thank you for, first of all, I agree with everything that you said. I mean, the pathways, we're giving them, I think it's great that you've been implementing these pathways, but giving them that time throughout the year to actually do it is important. The November date that you're talking about on Friday, when you say it would be early dismissal, was that the discussion? Because I know when I was in that committee, the discussion was about those long days in November. So they're still going to be here the same amount of time. It's just that it would be professional development rather than an entire day of teaching after they're here at night, right?
Correct.
So it's just shifting what they're doing,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah, that on this calendar, so the Thursday before Thanksgiving is one of the traditional evenings of parent conferences. So on the Thursday before, they would teach all day on this calendar on November 21st. They would have conferences at night. Then the next day, that Friday, they would only have students for a half day of teaching, and then they'd have professional learning in the